Okay, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the Transfer Student Experience panel. My name is Joshua Dullaghan and my pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Instruction and Student Affairs for Rausser College of Natural Resources. I'm going to be serving as the moderator for this session, and we have some amazing transfer students here to share their voices about the transfer student experience, and we'll be introducing them soon. But to start off with, I'd like to recognize that UC Berkeley sits on the territory of the Huichin, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chicano-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign band, Verona Band of Alameda County. And this land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize that every member of the Berkeley community has and continues to benefit from the use of and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1868. Consistent with our values of community, inclusion, and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the university's relationship to Native peoples. As members of the Berkeley community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we stand, but also recognize the Muwekma Ohlone people are alive and flourishing members of the Berkeley and broader Bay Area community today. So if you would like to learn more about that, you can do so at aloneland.berkeley.edu. Next, I'd like to discuss the outline of today's information session before introducing you to our panelists. As you may have noticed, you can see us, but we cannot see or hear you. So if you have a question, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And I will be sort of filtering those in as we get them when we get to the Q&A portion. We're going to start off with some 6 initial questions for all of our panelists, just so you can get to know them and get to know their experiences. And then we'll dive into your Q&A questions. So as soon as you think of them, you could type them in and just know that they're getting queued up. And then lastly, this session will be recorded and will hopefully be up on our website later on this week. We'll also post some contact information later on at the end of the chat in case you have some general questions for our office. Okay, now that we've gotten all the logistics out of the way, let me once again welcome you to Cal Week Transfer Student Experience Panel, and congratulations on your admission to the university. We all know you've worked very hard to get up to this point, and you, like our current transfer panelists, are amazingly stellar students. So we can't wait for you to come join us in the fall and to meet you then. As transfer students, we want to share information about specific resources and encourage you to make use of those services offered by the Transfer Student Center on campus. The Transfer Student Center provides assistance to students who transfer from Cal, from other colleges and universities, while navigating the academic and cultural landscape of being within a large research university. We'll be posting their website later on into the chat, but just so you know, their programs and services focus on supporting a successful transition, helping transfer students build connections and community, and also assisting students as they explore and pursue their academic and career goals. Today, we have 5 amazing panelists. Well, we have 4 currently and a 5th one on the way as soon as she finishes her class. And so to start off with, I'm going to ask each panelist to share your name, your major, what year you are, and a fun fact about yourself. And so to start off, Kelsey, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Kelsey, she, her pronouns. My major is MEB, so molecular environmental biology. I am a senior, so I am actually graduating this year. Woo! And fun fact about me is I love to cook. I'm not good though, so that's that's the funny thing. I'm not the best cook, but I do love cooking and like coming up with either random recipes or finding some online. So that's what I like to do on my free time.
Thank you, Kelsey. Violet, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Violet Henderson, and some students call me Auntie Violet. I go by she, her series, and I am a simultaneous major of Conservation Resource Studies and African American Studies. And a fun fact about me that I am a grandmother of 3 with the oldest grandchild just he just got accepted to the University of Hawaii. So I'll be working with him to keep him excited about school.
And hopefully taking some visits to go visit him at the University of Hawaii, which is actually, I was just there, it's quite a beautiful campus. Jett, could you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hey guys, I'm Jett. I go by the He series, and like Kelsey, I'm also a senior, so I'm graduating after this week, which is really exciting. I'm a microbial biology major, MB, and one fun fact about myself is that I've run up Mount Fuji, so that's pretty cool.
That's super impressive. Thank you, Jett. And last but certainly not least, Melodie, your turn.
Hi, everyone. First of all, congratulations, Violet. That sounds awesome. My name is Melodie. I use the she, her pronouns. I'm a double major in environmental econ and society and environment. I'm also a senior, so I'm also graduating after this semester, after this week, so it's really exciting. And a fun fact about me is that I love to travel. I've been to a lot of places.
Great, thank you. I'm so glad that we have you all here and that each of you has been here for a couple years. So you remember what Cal was like before we went into shelter in place, which is not necessarily true for our first year transfer students, but we'll be returning back to campus. So just want to put that out there in the mindset of maybe transporting back before March 2020 of what your experiences were like, sort of thinking about being on campus and maybe how they've transitioned in the remote during remote instruction, because that occasionally pops up with wildfires and other things that happen through the course of California's history. But to start off with, I'm wondering, what did you think Berkeley was going to be like before you came here? If you can go back right around now, maybe a few years ago when you got your transfer admissions letter. This just happened for our students last week, so it's very, very fresh. I'm wondering, what were you thinking about Cal, and maybe what was it like after you got here as well? Kelsey, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can start off. So when I first got my acceptance, I will admit I cried. I was at work and I opened it and the confetti came out, and it was a whole experience. To be honest, coming into Cal, I thought it was going to be really scary because I knew that everyone was very smart and intelligent, and I was coming in feeling like I didn't even know how I got in. And so that was like a little imposter syndrome for sure. But walking on campus, I know you can't do it right now, or like you can, but you just have to wear your mask and do the whole thing if you live locally. It's beautiful. Like, it was one of those things that I would take the picture like all the times, like when I'd walk through and do the little boomerang. And then going into the classes, I think one thing that kind of shocked me in the beginning was the small classes I thought were really big. Because I was used to like the community college size classes. And so I was like, these are a lot of people. But going in, I think that it was scary. I definitely had the imposter syndrome, but talking to people and getting to know people, like everyone's really friendly. And if you feel like you don't understand what's going on in class and everyone else does, you always find people who are going to be feeling the same way you are or on the same page that you are in. And so like going back to those first times that I was on campus, that's how it felt. But just taking it in, seeing everyone and all the dynamics was really beautiful for sure.
Just to follow up, I actually had, I was also really nervous when I first got my admissions letter. I was kind of in shock that they sent to the wrong person. Like, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not for me. And but I was really excited, and I was a little intimidated because Berkeley is known as this top university, and I thought that everybody is going to be super smart and I wasn't going to fit in. But when you first walk into campus, there's a lot of things going on, and I was a little intimidated at first, but I mean, originally I thought I was gonna like join all the possible clubs I could possibly find and make friends that way. But honestly, during GOB week, I've known some of my friends made lifelong friends during that week. So I really recommend taking advantage of that. And yeah.
For transfer students who don't know yet, GBO is Golden Bear Orientation. So when you get oriented to campus by your advisors. Jett or Violet?
Yeah, I can go ahead. I feel like I had a bit of a different experience in that I didn't transfer from a community college, so I actually transferred from another UC Santa Barbara. And I also was fortunate enough, like where my girlfriend at the time actually went to Cal, and so I was visiting Berkeley a lot the previous 2 years. I was driving up like every month and a half or so. So I had, this opportunity to experience Berkeley before I was admitted. I think even so, like coming in, I was definitely worried mostly about like the social aspect of Berkeley, just because as a transfer student, all the other kids who kind of came in as freshmen, sort of have their friend groups. But I was like pleasantly surprised, and I've made some of my best friends at Berkeley, and we still Zoom every week, even though I'm not there right now. Yeah, it's been a really great experience for me, definitely.
And for me, when I got that letter, I was really excited because I only applied to Berkeley. So it was confirmation of my positive thinking that I was going to get in. I transferred from community college in Oakland. So since I live in the Bay Area, I would actually come to the university on the weekends and do my homework in a library that I was allowed to go in since I was not a student. So I would meet up with some of the students who are friends of mine who were already admitted to Cal. So we had started study groups, and I was a part of an organization called Experience Berkeley. And they helped, the people in that group helped me get acquainted with the campus. And on the times that I wasn't studying as in community college, I would just come on the weekends and just walk around the campus with the intentions that I was in sending out vibrations that I was going to be a student here. So once I did get admitted, it was, like I said, confirmation. And then I started meeting people who are definitely a lot younger than I am, but then I found that I fit in with a lot of students because we had a lot of similarities. And it doesn't really matter what age you are, nationality or anything like that. Basically, we're all students, and we have the same goal of coming to the university, the greatest university, to learn what we can so we can take it out into the world and share.
Thank you all for sharing your initial experiences. They sound wonderful. I'm wondering, once you came to campus, what was the best way that you could think of, or that you did, that to engage with events or clubs? How did you find out about those? How did you find housing? How did you sort of plant your feet down in your first, semester at Cal?
I'll go first. Housing was easy for me because it's my current resident. And getting in touch with groups, it was just the people in the community that I developed before coming to Berkeley, and then also expanding. But the most important thing is the emails that we get. We get a lot of emails, and I just encourage you to open them up and read them because they're not all junk mail.
Yes, if there's a piece of advice I can offer is learn to use Google Suite and its filters as much as possible. Maybe educate yourself on that process, because the more organized you can stay with your email, you will get a lot of email. You'll be sending out a lot of emails to your advisors and your professors. And if you can get that organized at the start, or at least become familiar with it, it'd be super helpful. Kelsey, I saw your mic come off. Were you gonna?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like if you're fortunate, one of the things I did when I first got on campus was, okay, the campus is so big that it felt a little overwhelming. And I was taking like a little intro class to get in like to Berkeley of like 4 transfer students. And one thing they recommended is to set a goal on one thing and try to like discover it throughout the campus. So if you have like learned a fun fact of like things where you can see stuff, or like how many libraries there are, which was mine. So I went and tried finding every single library and going into all of them, walking around, finding a good study spot. And like when you're on campus, before it was like a lot of flyers, and I guess the equivalent now is the emails. You really do like have to look at them and like see what's going on, especially the ones from the advisors. They give a very nice compact thing of like all the interesting flyers or things that they would think you're interested in. And so looking at those and like reading through them was also really helpful to figure out any events I wanted to go to, or any clubs that sounded interesting and things like that.
When it comes to the clubs, I think it's important to keep in mind, like, not to be afraid of rejection, just because I feel like Berkeley is really unique in that a lot of clubs do require applications, and different opportunities require those applications, and you want to be in that mindset where you're putting yourself out there, and even if you get rejected, I was rejected from a bunch of clubs, but I ended up getting into this really cool program, or a really cool club, with TEDx Berkeley, and I get to manage that. And so I think, not being afraid of putting yourself out there and being rejected is really important when you first get to Berkeley and try to establish, friend groups and different opportunities.
One thing I'd like to add is during GBO week, your GBO leaders will ask you to download these applications that help you find the events in Cal. I don't remember what they're called, but I remember there are also really cool guest speakers, that really successful guest speakers that come to Cal and give speech, I don't know, speeches or like panels almost. So when I was there, I found out I was a huge fan of this guy named Edward O. Wilson, who studies ants, and he's a huge guy in the environmental field. And I remember I discovered that he was coming to Cal, I think just 2 days before he was coming. And so I was able to use that application to get the ticket and get to his speech. And he had guest speakers come over, and it was a really cool experience. So highly recommend taking advantage of that. And one thing to know is you shouldn't feel pressured to join any clubs if you don't feel comfortable to, because I had a moment where they have this club week where all the clubs would just line up in the most common areas, and you go and visit every one of them. And I tried to get into, I think, like 5 to 10 clubs in my first week of college, and I got a burnout and didn't end up going and joining any of them, even after I've gotten in, after all the applications and the interview process. So definitely take it slow and make sure that you don't burn out the first week of college.
Berkeley can be a little bit like an all-you-can-eat buffet. You have to pace yourself if you want to get to dessert. I'm assuming everyone is not living at Violet's house. So would the other three like to talk about maybe about like your search for housing when you first started at Cal?
I could go first. So I originally applied for the Martinez Commons, I think, housing on campus, and I didn't get any feedback the first round. So I thought maybe I should find my own off-campus housing. If you have social media, or if you want to make a social media for this specific purpose, on Facebook, there's a UC Berkeley on-campus housing group that you can try to add yourself in, and in that group they post housing availabilities off campus, and you can also post on there that you're looking for a place, and then people will direct message you in that application. And from personal experience, from the short time that I've been there, off-campus housing is definitely much cheaper than on-campus housing, depending on where you are, but it's all a matter of personal preference.
So for me, I'm actually a commuter student. So I live in San Francisco currently, and from the beginning of Cal, and so I would just drive and commute. So besides the housing, if you are a commuter student and you are going to be driving to either visit the campus or whatever, um, there are parking spots that you can rent. And you just have to go onto Craigslist, which is like how I found that out. There's also parking passes that you can get for the semester on the like any of the parking lots that Berkeley has. That is cheaper than renting a parking spot, I later learned. But either one is like viable depending on what your preference is. So there's always that if you want to look. I assume there's something on Facebook maybe for parking spots also, just because Facebook has everything now. But Craigslist was the way that I learned it. And it was like in an apartment building on the first floor, and it was like gated if that's like also your preference.
Yeah, I actually lived in Martinez Commons, which is part of Berkeley housing, for a semester. That was a really cool experience. I feel like it was a good base for just getting started at Berkeley. And then I ended up moving out for one semester. I moved into a co-op, which was really fun, but maybe not the most conducive to academics.
Speaking of academics, I'm wondering how was the homework load compared to your community college courses? Sorry, I'm digressing away from the script for a little bit, but it seemed like a good segue.
For me personally, I think community colleges give you a lot of assignments. Numerically, on paper, it looks like you have like 10 assignments to complete, but each assignment doesn't take as long as what you would do in at Cal. At Cal, there might be, I think, like 2 assignments throughout the semester per class, but each assignment, like problem sets or anything, it would take you at least like a week looking over it every day and trying to figure out the correct answer. And I think that's because a lot of the homeworks that's given from community college, you can find the answers easily from the materials in class. But from Cal, everything that the professor teaches in class, you have to apply it rather than copy and paste it from the lecture.
Yeah, just to like add on to that and like slightly reiterate, I think that for me in community college, I used to have like no homework Fridays. And now I think that that was a funny concept. Just because the rigor of Berkeley is definitely doable, but the amount of time that you have to take digesting the material is different. So it's something that I think for most of my classes, it's like they teach you something at a level and it's like all the basics, all the fundamentals, they'll take it up a notch. And then it's really being comfortable with the material because they'll apply it in a different format, but it's either maybe a little bit harder in some classes and others it's around the same rigor as what they taught in class, but you have to be comfortable with the material to be able to apply it. So that was one of the big harder like transitions, along with like it's a research institute, so a lot of the professors love to either put in their research or their colleagues' research, and so they'll show you these papers and it's being comfortable looking at that and being able to analyze what it is that the main points are trying to extract from these papers, because they're not going to have you read all of them. It's the examples that they put in to make a comparison to the material that they're teaching you.
And now that Kelsey's speaking about reading, your reading load will absolutely go up. And when you, depending on what class you get, you may feel overwhelmed at the reading list. But I encourage you to take a look at the syllabi and really study it so that way you can navigate your way through the semester. There's a lot of professors who require you to do a lot of the reading, and they will not touch upon the readings per se in the lecture because we're supposed to read the information and be in conversation in the lecture about the readings. And so just be aware of that and be prepared. and just pace yourself on the readings. Definitely take notes while you're reading. So therefore, when the main ideas come up, you already have a list of it so you can contribute to the lecture. And I find that the lectures and being in Zoom is when you're more prepared, when you've done the reading and you contribute in conversation rather than just having the professor do the lecture. It feels like a big disconnect. But when more students engage, I feel it's more enriching. So just think about how you fit in and be prepared to share, because we all have a wonderful voice and we can learn from each other.
So next question. So that question came through our Q&A. That was not one of our 6. So people are already starting to submit their Q&A questions. So if you have a questions, please feel free to submit there and we'll work them in towards the end. So for the next question I have is, for all of you, what has been your experience with research on campus?
I can get started. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of research experience. I'm currently working on an independent project in a lab at Berkeley, and I'm involved in a bunch of different programs here, like the honors program and SPUR. I also participate in like research outside of Berkeley, so I'm going to Columbia University this summer. And if you want to talk about national scholarships, we can do that as well. But when it comes to research, I feel like I meet so many students are interested in getting started in research. They don't know where to begin. They don't know like how to engage professors on that level because they haven't really had that opportunity before. And what I tell them usually is, we have lots of different resources, but at Berkeley, you have to seek them out. You have to have that initiative to go to ours, which is the undergraduate office or the Office of Undergraduate Research, and they can help you walk through that stuff. And there's also, like SPUR, which is a sponsored project for undergraduate research, and there's also ULab. So we have so many resources here. I just think they're underutilized because you have to really seek them out and put in time to go to those offices and engage with the people there who are designed to help you.
For me, research has been really a godsend because it gives you an opportunity to really look at what you're interested in and take those questions and take them and get them answered, whether that's through the literature, doing library searches or going out and doing in-depth interviews with people. And then you bring it all together and you compile it into a paper. And, before coming to Berkeley, I didn't know that I had this skill, and it's not difficult to learn. And so one of the research programs that I got involved with I came in 2018. So I am a senior plus right now. I graduate next year. So I got into the Mcnier Scholars Program, and they give you the basics, and it's a wonderful opportunity for anyone who is considered a first-generation low-income student. It's also a preparation to get you into graduate school too. So you will learn your research skills and everything that you need to know, and it pulls you out of yourself in terms of helping you to discover who you are as a scholar.
The only other thing I think I would add to all of that, I actually personally didn't do research. And if you want to do it, if that's your thing, by all means, you should go for it. Because especially in CNR, we have the SPUR and the URAP that you can apply to. So those are 2 different sets of different research that you can do, and you can apply to 2. And normally you can only apply to the one if you're in a different college. So you should definitely take advantage of that if you want. Through someone I know, which I didn't know, is through research, you don't always have to be in a lab. She's currently working on something about an index and reviewing it and being able to publish that along with obviously the person who's facilitating that and other students. And so they're going through and they're going to publish that again, which is really exciting. So if like going into lab and being in there isn't something that you are interested in, there are other options that you can look into if that's what you want to do.
And we have our fifth panelist joining us, Hilary Tran. Hilary, would you take just a moment to introduce yourself? Let us know your name, your major, your year, and a fun fact about yourself.
For sure. Hi, everyone. Sorry I came late. I just came from my Equity Fluent Leader class, and we had presentations, so I would have came earlier if I could. But yeah, a little bit about me. Hi, everyone. My name is Hilary Tran. I'm currently a fourth-year environmental science major, and I'm minoring in sustainability. My pronouns are she, her, and a fun fact is throughout the pandemic, I've been playing this game called Sky, and I've now like had really close friendships with friends from all around the world. So yeah.
Welcome. Maybe you might want to be the first one to answer our next question, which is, what advice would you offer students who are hesitant to talk to their professors or to graduate students?
For sure. So I definitely think making a bond with your professors or your GSIs is really crucial, especially in the future when you need to ask for letters of recommendations or just any feedback on like career advice or educational advice. So even if you don't reach out to your professors within their office hours, make sure to engage in your classes, I don't know if for fall, if the classes are still going to be virtual, but if you can like actively participate in your classes by, like asking questions and making sure that, like you're participating and just, yeah, like I think it's really important to make that connection with your professors and your GSIs if possible. Yeah.
Anyone else want to contribute to this question? Any advice about talking to professors or grad students?
Yes, I know a lot of people are shy and a little bit reserved in terms of, and maybe even intimidated about talking to professors and GSIs, but you got to remember they're just people too. And one of the best advice that was given to me is if you're in a class and you have a professor, go online and Google him or her and find out what type of research have they done. And then you can read up on that information and use that as a starting topic when you go into office hours. But office hours are like gold. You definitely want to spend time with them so they can get to know who you are. Because when it comes to the time that you're going to ask for a letter of recommendation, whether to get into graduate school or get into a research program, they're going to need to know who you are. And if you have not engaged with them, then they have nothing to say about you. So it's huge. I encourage you to do it.
Melodie, do you want to go first?
Oh, you can go, no worries.
I was going to say, I love the GSIs, the graduate students. They are usually their office hours, like anyone that you like talk to them, you don't even have to go in with questions. Like if you don't have them, sometimes I would just go in and be like, what do you do for research? Like, what do you want to do? And getting to know them on a personal level it's amazing because you're going to learn a lot more, like just because you're going to be engaged with them, and maybe stuff about the class will eventually pop up, or you'll feel more confident asking them any like dumb questions. And being able to communicate and talk to them can be super beneficial for your learning and just being more engaged and interested in the class. And for the professors, yeah, they're like Violet said, they're people. Like they're there and they want you to learn, they want you to do well. And they are very smart people, but that doesn't mean that they should be intimidating, because they also started where we did and they developed and they learned. And that's what, that's what we're here for, right?
And just something to add, because I was one of those students who transferred and was super intimidated by the GSIs and the professors because they're so accomplished, is that one of my professors, and this helped me be not scared of them. One of my professors came to class with her dog one day on a bike and took her huge golden retriever and was like, so this is my dog and here are the two GSIs, and it's like a family. The GSI and the professors, some of the relationships are like a family, and most of the time or sometimes in lecture when you just have absolutely no idea what the professor is trying to teach you, I think you can be very confident and go into the professor's office hours and pretty much say like, look, I don't even know what questions to ask. Like, I don't know what, but I'm trying to understand like what you taught us, but please like help me. And they'll be more than happy to. Like, don't feel intimidated at all.
To piggyback on some of the things that have been said so far, I'm going to paraphrase a quote from a Harry Potter film here, but every great professor started off as an undergraduate who had no research experience. So, there are going to be future professors or future professors here on our panel. There's future professors here in our audience. And it's just sort of taking that first step to go on that journey together. Melodie, you had mentioned a point of offering some advice, which feeds into our next question really nicely. Do you have advice for students who may be struggling in a class? Have any of you struggled in a class? And what did you do about to gain command over that particular information?
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead, Melodie. Go ahead.
Are you sure? Okay. I've for the first semester of Berkeley, it's definitely a transition. I transferred but 6 months prior to transferring, I haven't gone back to school. And so on top of that, I was definitely struggling to and I felt like I understood what the professor is talking about. And then when the midterm comes and the questions, I look at them and I'm just like, I don't understand one question on this exam. And so I try, and while struggling, I think it's a part of the process, definitely. And I think for some of you, it's probably going to be your first C, like in school for the first semester of Berkeley, which I definitely had. And I think it's just definitely, even as you're struggling and even though you feel like you're going to fail the class, it's definitely helpful to go into the office hours, and most likely everyone else is struggling as well. So in office hours, you see like 20 students who are on the same page as you, who just wants to understand as much as you do about the certain topic. And so definitely office hours, GSIs, and don't feel hesitant about asking questions in class, because normally the lecture halls are like 200-300 people, and it's definitely intimidating, but get out of your comfort zone a little bit and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I I definitely have the same sentiment as Melodie. So I was also a transfer student, and when I transferred to Cal my first semester in fall 2019, it was definitely a big change in the coursework. One of the classes that I definitely struggled with was organic chemistry. And with that class, like there was a lecture, there was the lab lecture, and there was the actual lab. And so like having all these additional sections to attend and then managing that with the coursework and actually studying and then trying to find time to socialize, like do student org work. So that was definitely something that I struggled with, but especially with the coursework, I think time management, as well as keeping myself accountable to continue like studying every week, that's something that's really important. I think my peers were definitely my biggest support with coursework, definitely form study groups, like maybe on the first week if you can, like reach out to your classmates if you're like put into breakout rooms, or like if you see someone, if it's in person, just like talk to the people around you. I'm pretty sure like on the first week, everyone is just like awkward and, you know, definitely attend office hours. I definitely attended my lab GSI's office hours every single week to ask for help on the lab guides. Like I went to them and I was like, I literally have no idea what we're doing. So please, please help. And they were always supportive and not judgmental at all. And definitely what Joshua put in the chat, the Student Learning Center was definitely one of my biggest support as well, like the tutors there. And yeah, definitely reach out to all the resources that you can. So yeah.
I think everyone said everything almost that I wanted to say, but the only other thing I was gonna add is, yeah, like Melody, my first semester, I took genetics, and it was an experience, but I don't know what it was, and I don't know if this is the experience for everyone else. The person I happened to sit next to was also a transfer student. So all I had to do like was turn to her and then start talking. And then it was like, oh, you're a transfer student. I'm a transfer student. And it was just like a full on conversation. And we helped each other throughout the rest of the semester. And ask for averages, because some of the tests are going to be hard, but when you find out what the average is, like it potentially is going to be low. And I think that was something that I had to learn from community college. And so if the average is at 50%, and you have a 54%, you're winning, even though it doesn't feel like that always. So don't be afraid to email professors, the GSIs, ask for that average if they don't already post them.
One thing I wanted to make really clear is that for really big lectures at Cal, like over 100 people, when you enroll in the class, you also enroll in a discussion section, which is a section that's a lot smaller, maybe like 20-30 people in that section. And during that discussion section, I think it would be most valuable then to make your study groups and your friends, and of course during lecture too, but it's a small group of people is probably more beneficial because you'll see them every week, the same discussion section.
I'm going to touch upon a question that came into our Q&A here, since you're mentioning the large classroom spaces. Someone is asking, is the fall semester going to be 100% in person? So right now, the goal is to be in person as much as possible, with the exception of lectures that are over 200 students. So for those lectures will be happening remotely, but each of those larger lecture classes will usually have a smaller section component, which would be in person. So you'll still be able to experience an in-person, probably a smaller group, in a smaller group for that class, but sort of the larger lecture where you just would be listening to the professor anyway, will be done more in a remote format. So I thought I'd touch upon that since we're talking about the large classes. And our last structured question before we dive deeply into wonderful Q&A questions is, I wonder if we could just popcorn around and see where people are at. Like, do you have an idea of what you want your career to be now that many of you are graduating? Maybe if you know more about other professions that people within your major are going into, if there's some common threads that maybe you're aware of, if you would share that. Maybe let's start with Jett.
Oh, definitely. I think personally, I'm really interested in pursuing a PhD program. Lots of friends and myself have also considered medical school. But aside from like continuing education, I know tons of people in my major go straight into industry, biotech, not even research. They can just do marketing in that sphere. And also, I know a lot of people who do consulting as well. So I think there's tons of options if you're a microbial biology major. It just depends on what your interests are and if you want to pursue, even more school after this or not.
More school is great. And it's also okay to take a break after your undergraduate career. You've definitely earned it. Kelsey, how about you?
Yeah, so I am going to be applying to physician assistant programs. So it's a master's program, and I am doing it this cycle instead of last cycle because it takes a whole year for me to like start just so that I can get that gap. Like I think that I'm excited to have a year of just either work and traveling and hanging out and things like that. For my major for MEB, I know people who have gone working with like the city and they've done things with like city, not, it sounds weird, like city planning, but it's for like the environmental stuff. So they're looking at like, can they build here? What's there? Like doing all these other like behind the scenes things before anything it gets placed in motion. And so that can entail like a little bit of consulting also. And a lot of people also go into med school or other medical professions and more school. I mean, it molecular environmental biology is kind of, it sounds very specific, but it's very wide in what it is that you can focus on, which is really nice.
Violet?
Yes, I will be applying to graduate school. I will be in pursuit of my PhD. And people, one of the things that strikes me is because of my simultaneous degrees, I'm looking at more environmental justice arena. And so, and just having conversations with people who are in that area, you can do it through urban studies and different statewide systems, or a federal system, federal jobs. So that's where I'm going.
That's awesome. I was wondering how your bachelor's, your separate degrees were going to intersect. That's wonderful. And for those of you who are not in with the Cal lingo yet, a simultaneous degree is basically a double major, but in two separate colleges. So Violet is a student within CNR and also in Letters and Science for her second major. And just to sort of plug CRS and its flexibility, one of our advisors, Lilenia Avila, is a graduate of our CRS program, and she went on to get her PhD in I forget the specifics, but she's an expert in snakes. That's what I know. And now she is advising students within our MEB major. Melodie, how about you?
I also want to get my master's degree, but I want to get it in Europe. So from that program that I'm looking at, they require 3 years of field experience prior to. And so I was originally I applied for the Peace Corps. And for those of you that didn't know, Berkeley sends out the most Peace Corps volunteers. So if you are interested in that field, we can talk about that also. But because of COVID, everything has been pushed back. So now I actually got a job in also abroad in Korea that I will be going to in August. So that's really nice.
And Hilary.
For me, I definitely did reach out to a lot of CNR alumni as well as those that were previously in environmental science. And my mentor, he was a environmental science undergrad here, and he went to work into environmental consulting, but then went back to school to do data science. So that intersection of environmental and data science. I also have heard of another alumni that goes into the sustainability field, and that's also the field that I'm interested in. And I guess like asking for advice from alumni, I asked whether I should pursue graduate school right after or enter the workforce, and a lot of them said that definitely know when you're getting yourself into when you're choosing a graduate program. So for me, I'm going to be entering the workforce to gain some work experience before I apply for a graduate program within the field of sustainability and product sustainability and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Great. Thank you for all for sharing your experiences. So we're going to go over to the Q&A group of questions here. And this first question is for Melodie and Violet. We were wondering, when you came in, underneath a single major. What made you think about becoming a double or simultaneous degree student? And did you already have that in mind when you came in? And how has it been trying to get all of your courses in the shorter time that transfer students have to earn their degrees?
It has been a challenge, and it's also been gratifying too, because I just spoke with my academic major in CRS and found out that I have all my qualifications in for my major. So that was wonderful. I have one class, with the exception of the 194 I have to take. I thought about double major or simultaneous major before I got to the school, but I wasn't really sure that that's what I wanted to do until I went to Cal Day and I got to the table where the African American Studies department was. And even though I had already started working in the taking the environmental classes, after talking to some people at that table, I could see how I can blend the two to make a better I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but to make me more enriched of an individual. So once I leave the university, I'll have more knowledge and skills that I can draw from, and also lived experiences. So the paperwork was not difficult at all. I had to get permission from Letters in Science to declare that major, and I had to go through the dean's office. So it was a little bit of a running around to do, making sure that I got into talk to the right people. Both advisors from both colleges had to talk and agree. So I came in 2018. My original graduation date was 2020. I got an extra 2 years in order to complete those requirements. So it's doable. You just have to be committed to the cause. That is one of the reasons why I haven't chose to be involved in any groups, because I decided to do research, which takes up a lot of time too. And then getting to know the people to help you navigate and get through your assignments and also your majors is huge. So it's definitely doable. And if you're willing to do it and want to talk further about it, I welcome that conversation.
So for me, I originally also wanted to do a simultaneous degree when I first transferred. I wanted to do environmental economics and policy and film. And I was originally going to apply and do all the paperwork and everything that was necessary for me to do so, until I talked to the film advisor a couple of times. And at that time, I think it's changed now, but at that time, the film program at Berkeley was very much not production based, but much theory based. And I wanted to do more production based. So I went and asked the advisor, I said, so if I actually wanted to work in the film industry, do I need this bachelor's degree certificate that I will get at the end and work in film production, or do they value experience more? And my advisor pretty much told me, if you want to work in production, then experience values more than the certificate that you're going to get at the diploma. And he was like, if you want to be a film critic, then take the film degree by all means. But if you want to do more production, it's the other way around. And so I changed. I didn't end up doing the simultaneous major, and I found out that society and environment was another major that CNR offered. And I found out that I was actually more interested in society and environment than environmental econ. So I decided to declare my double major in society and environment, and was the best decision I've made, because society and environment is a really small group of people that major because not in this major, because not a lot of people know about it. And so I think at some point, I think at my graduating class, there might be like 49 people out of the College of Natural Resources that actually major in society and environment. And so if you take those classes that are required for this major, you pretty much meet everybody who majors the same major as you. And that gives you a really nice group of people and a really great sense of community. And highly recommend the major. But it's the paperwork process is not difficult at all. I think the only challenging part is trying to find the classes that will fit into your major requirements, because I don't know much about simultaneous degrees, but for double majors within the same college, a lot of classes actually overlap between majors, but only 2 can overlap to count towards your major. So that took me hours to figure out. But when you apply for the double major, you have to submit like a schedule form where you have all your classes listed out and like what class you want to take for this major and what class you want to take for that major. So it's a lot of communication between the 2 advisors, but it's definitely doable. I've been transferring. I transferred in Berkeley for 2 years now, and this is my 2nd year, and I was able to do double major in environmental econ and society and environment if time is a problem.
Thank you both for sharing your experience. Yes, for simultaneous degree and double majors, it is about the planning, and that's part of why you have amazing academic advisors to help you out and to see if it's feasible. And for simultaneous degree, it's a little bit trickier because you're also dealing with policies from other colleges, another department. And so it might take a little bit of trekking across campus to talk to multiple people to figure out if it's possible, but we definitely have students do it all the time. So I have a question from one of our attendees, Grayson. Thank you for your question. The question is, were any of you considering other UCs, and what made you pick UC Berkeley? Particularly, if any of you were considering UCLA, what made you think, oh, UC Berkeley is the right one for me? This may be true if you were considering any other institutions and you chose Cal. What were you thinking?
I applied only to the UC system, and I applied to UCLA and Berkeley, and I applied to UC Santa Barbara, and I applied to UC San Diego. And I had the opportunity to go to all those schools. Specifically, I was deciding between UCLA and UC Berkeley. And I chose Berkeley because back in high school when I visited UC Berkeley, I think I was really amazed by the opportunities Berkeley offered. And I think one of the things that really stuck by me, and with my sister, she's like 10 years younger than me, but she stuck by her too, was that we were walking down this part of campus, and our leader, the person who took us around campus said, oh, so this is where I think, was it like plutonium or something was discovered, like this chemical thing on the element table. And I think that was something that was like, oh my God, so this is where everything happened to me, like at that moment. And I felt like I really belonged to the campus because it felt like a lot of things were going on. It felt like I was able to find my way, and everything was super clear to me, like what this building was for and this building was for. And from UCLA, out of high school, a lot of my friends got into UCLA, so I was able to visit them while visiting the campus. And when I was on campus, I couldn't find anything. Like the buildings took me 30 minutes to go to, and something that was right in front of me, my friend's like, yeah, let's meet there. And then I was like, I don't know where there is. Like it takes me like an hour to find everything. And so and also my parents live here, so I wanted to be a little farther away from home. And that's why I decided to go to UC Berkeley.
Oh, unmute myself. Apparently Berkeley was the first choice of everybody else, I'm guessing. There were no other considerations. Does anyone else want to share this on this question before I move on to the next one? Okay. So the next question I have is, when you first transferred, did you feel like you had a lot to catch up on? I'm guessing it means academics. Did you feel you were behind academically?
I can go. I don't feel like I was behind academically. Um, and maybe that's just my personal thing. I think that there's a lot of like nomenclature that I could get away with not using in community college, but that doesn't mean that I didn't understand the concepts behind them because I had been exposed to them. And so definitely being able to like remember like what does that word mean and like where was it applied was something maybe I had to like I felt a little behind in. But besides that, academically, like what you learn in a community college is going to be applicable and it's what other people learn here. For me, it was mainly the studying strategies that I felt I had to relearn. But besides the material, it wasn't.
Yeah, I think I have like the same sentiment as Kelsey. So for my final semester in community college, like I was taking just as curriculum rigorous like classes as the ones that I was taking in or took my first semester and the following semesters at Cal. So it wasn't like a massive change with the coursework rigor, but like she said, like I also definitely had to reevaluate like how I was managing my time and like my study habits and forming these study groups with my colleagues as well as attending office hours. So yeah, like the curriculum, it wasn't different. But yeah, like what I said earlier. Sorry about that.
Sometimes you have a train of thought and you're going somewhere and then you forget where you're heading and you're like, oh, I already got there. So yeah, totally understand that. Are any of our panelists part of the honors program? Jett, could you talk a little bit about your experience in that program?
Yeah, for sure. Honors program is great. I mean, I really enjoy research, and it just felt like it would be really enriching to write a thesis since I'm, already writing some papers, and so it just made sense for me to join the honors program, especially because I also applied for SPUR, so just like a natural extension. What I really like about it is that you get to work closely, or at least I got to work closely with my PI in order to develop this honors thesis and potential publication. And it's always nice to get units for research. That's something the honors program allows you to do. I don't know, it felt like a great capstone to my experience at Berkeley. I don't know if I guess I could talk maybe about like getting involved in the honors program, which is actually really straightforward. Essentially, you just need the approval of your PI or lab, head of the lab, and I don't think it's too difficult to apply, and once you get approval, I think you're good to go.
Is anyone else involved in the honors program? Okay, I'll post the website in a second for the honors program if people are interested in that. Next question is, when did you realize Berkeley was your home? Or I guess describe a moment when it felt like, wow, I'm really gonna love it here.
I could go. So for me, I think our experience as a total is a little different because we were only on campus for like 6 months or like less than that, and then Zoom lectures started. But for me, when I realized that I'm really going to enjoy this university was actually during the last day of GBO week, when we were like it was a requirement to go to the what was it called, like GBO, like the presentation, like the in the theater. I don't remember the name, but during that presentation, it was like unlike any other presentation I've ever seen before. And it felt, for anybody who was watching, I think could agree that the performance that and the thought that went into the performance of what the college experience was going to be like and what you should look out for, and everything that went into that performance was absolutely like genius to me. Like this, like it wasn't like this monotonous lecture, like this is what you're going to experience here and this is what you're going to say to this experience. It was like actually applying it in real life situations. And I think a lot of people after watching it was like, you should like make this into like give this to all the other UCs so that a lot of the other schools could experience what we experienced, because after watching it, it felt like UC Berkeley really genuinely cared about their transfer students and not only the freshmen. And it was, everybody talked about it for like 3 days afterwards because it was so amazing, but I don't remember the name of it.
For me, I think it was more of a gut feeling that I belonged at Berkeley. And I believe that Berkeley chose me because in the San Francisco Bay Area, I could have applied to San Francisco State, Cal State East Bay, and some other UCs, but I definitely wanted to stay here locally. And the more I went to Berkeley and talked to people about Berkeley, it felt that that was the right decision for me to make and to be here, and I haven't regretted it at all.
I think for me, it was this like moment. I was like laying on the grass, and I like it just became the thing to do because everyone just like hangs out on the grass, the sun's shining, and I was like waiting in between classes, I think, and I was just sitting there and I was like, I can really like this place. Like it felt super like I don't know, very welcoming because everyone goes to the grass, everyone hangs out, frisbee, or they have like little hammocks. And I genuinely really loved the vibes. Also, I think that once I got accepted, it was like, I'm a first generation like Latina, and I was just like, I'm gonna do this. Like, I got accepted, this is where I'm gonna go. And it just felt like, I was like, yeah, like there's no other question about it. So
If I could just add that Kelsey brought up a point. Once you get here as a transfer student, there are so many avenues of support that you can't help but to feel that you belong because there's so many people who are willing to help you.
Okay, I've turned my camera off just because I'm having a little bit of lag issues, so I hope you don't mind. There's my profile picture there. So my next question that I have for you is sort of putting a bunch of different questions together here. Can you describe what the community is like at Rausser College or within your major? And maybe expanding upon that, you know, do you feel like you found your sense of community at Cal during the 2 years that you're here? And I know that's a little bit difficult to answer because of the pandemic, but yeah, I would love to hear your experiences of community within the UC system, Rausser, and your major. Or student orgs too.
Go ahead. I feel like the community is amazing, especially like in comparison to some of the larger, LNS majors. I love seeing the same people in my classes each semester, and I feel like, being in such a small college, I have a chance to make friends in a class, and I just keep seeing them, and they like continue to be my friends for the last, they've been my friends for the last 2 years. And it really fosters like a collaborative effort when it comes to academics. But more than that, like I also hang out with them outside of class, and they've been been really great to talk with someone who's also passionate about biology. And, I feel like having that experience is something that's maybe more rare within, these bigger colleges like the UCs.
So one of my all-time favorite things, I think, is so my advisor is Lilenia, and I like come in like my first time, super scared, and she goes, "How are you?" And I like it's one of those things that it's so small, but it's amazing. And so the advisors really do care and they really want to know where you're at and not just academically. It's like, how are you? And so I thought that was really like heartwarming because I don't know, sometimes you don't always feel that. Like you're just everything's happening all at once and you get kind of lost. But I'm actually also a PAL or a peer. I'm a PAL, so it's a peer advisor or advising leader. So I've been able to meet two other of the advisors that like facilitate the program, Sarah and Megan. So Megan does NST and then Sarah does CRS. Or does she do CRS? I'm getting ahead of myself, but
Yes, CRS, and she's also the EMF advisor, so ecology and forestry management.
yes.
Ecosystem.
Ecosystems, yeah. So she is also amazing, super caring, super loving. Same with Megan. She's like, she comes in and she's like, "Hi, friends." And it was like my first time meeting her. So, in that sense, like, besides what Jett said about in classes, like seeing the same people for the advisors, I thought that it was really nice to have that community. And then, if you also decide to want to do peer advising, you can like apply for doing it your next year. And they have a really great sense of community, full of knowledge that they're just willing to share any time of the day, pretty much.
I can also add on to this question. For my community, I guess like academically or like related to my major, CIRC was definitely one of the organizations that I found my community in, like with environmental work. They have this program called Environmentorship under CIRC, where you're paired with a graduate student or a alumni or someone that's in the environmental field. So that was great for me to have like someone to guide me through, I don't know, like questions that I had about my capstone or career advice, but also the colleagues that were also in that program with me. They have a lot of programs like the Zero Waste group. There's also other groups, like I'm blanking on the names, but there's a lot of student orgs too, and related to environmental work. Like there's SCEC, the student or SCEC community, I'm blanking on the name, but there's ASRB, Association for Responsible Business, ESA, the Environmental Science Student Association. There's just like so many organizations that you can join for community. But outside of environmental work, my main community at Cal was the Southeast Asian Student Coalition. So I think definitely joining a student org where there were like-minded students that were also like that identified as first generation, Southeast Asian, or like from the Bay Area that I was able to resonate with and bond with. So yeah, like having that environmental like community as well as the cultural community was something that helped me through college. And I think it's super important to find community. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I'm realizing that we are at time. We're actually over by a minute. I just got carried away with this conversation here. For those of you who asked questions on the Q&A that we weren't able to get to, I'm cutting and pasting them into my script here so that potentially we can address these in our general student experience panel that'll take place on Thursday at noon. So if you're open to come back and listen to us then, or attend any of your major advising sessions or information sessions that are happening in the evenings. And you can see that on our Cal Week website. You can also email your general questions to askcnr@berkeley.edu, which I'm putting into the chat right now. Also on our Cal Week website, you'll find ways to connect to our virtual front desk and meet with peer advising leaders such as Kelsey, and you can ask those questions there as well. Really want to do a huge shout out to our panelists today. You were amazing. These panelists were all recommended by their major advisor as being star candidates from their particular majors. I really want to thank you for taking the time. It's 15th week. We're about to go into finals. Everyone sort of gave up an hour plus of their time to be able to be on the panel today. Just want to say thank you so much. And with that, we will sign off. But until we see you in the fall semester, I was going to say, go Bears.
Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you.
Go Bears.